it's an honour to speak in this important debate. In January last year, Labour's Shadow Treasury Minister said of the impending deadline of April next year to pay the loan charges that we cannot let vulnerable people who have been exploited end up with massive tax debts hanging over their heads for many years to come. And if we see bankruptcies, failing businesses, repossessions, and even suicides, that will be because this government has not done enough to outreach needed and not invested in adequate training. I'm sorry to say this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we heard on the 1st of April that HMRC had reported itself to the police of the death of an individual who had been notified of loan charge bill. It was the first time HMRC felt it had been given sufficient evidence to link a death to the loan charge. I don't know any details of this case, and I don't want to speculate, but this was a tragic loss of a life, and it's a reminder for all of us what is at stake here.
Yeah. I've met with some of my constituents who have told me that they'll be severely affected by this retrospective loan charge if it's rolled out tomorrow, and have devastating effects for their families and themselves. So does it agree with me that this charge should be halted and a review set up to investigate the HMRC's actions in this matter?
I thank my honourable friend for making this very important point, and I entirely agree with his point. And it's very important that we make sure that people don't suffer because of this very unfair loan charges. I have a number of constituents whose lives have been turned upside down by the changes to tax legislation in DR schemes 3 years ago. On the face of it, I support the government's move to clamp down on the tax avoidance schemes, but the way the loan charges has been handled is confusing and cruel and seems less guided by principles, but rushing through a badly designed process to reclaim taxes. The Director General for Customer Strategy and Tax Design at HMRC told the House of Lords Economic Affairs Subcommittee in October 2018 that the loan legislation was put in place because it was just too much time and trouble for HMRC to exercise its pre-existing powers conferred by Parliament. I give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He's making a very powerful speech, and indeed my constituency has seen 100 affected. And I'm grateful to Mr Salotra and Mr George from Hounslow West who came to the rally yesterday. They also highlighted that families are under great strain and stress, and the situation that we are in is one of policy failure. Would he agree with me that it has been a contribution also of the inadequate research and inadequate impact analysis on this policy that has contributed to the pain and the strain, and that for people who thought they were doing the right thing, who want to do the right thing, that the delay and the review is not just the right but the human thing to now do?
I agree with my honourable friend who made a very important point. And one of my constituents recently wrote to me and pointed out that essentially we have legislation being enacted because HMRC find it too difficult and troublesome to follow the rules, and yet they expect taxpayers to follow the rules, and they don't follow the rules themselves. No one disputes that HMRC has the right to challenge companies and individuals that have participated in tax avoidance arrangements. But Parliament gave HMRC powers to do so long before the loan charge legislation was proposed. These powers have not been exercised, making a mockery of the existing legislation and denying taxpayers their legitimate right to have their dispute resolved by the courts. Many had no idea whether or not the schemes they're getting into by the employees were effective or defective. It is completely unfair to penalise those people who are innocent and not those who design, enable these complicated and vague structures. Differentiation must therefore be applied between those who entered into these arrangements, arguably with their eyes open, and those who were entered into them by their employers. The legislation has allowed thousands of people to accrue a tax debt that was yet to be invented when employees invested in good faith. If nothing changes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, thousands of people will be made bankrupt, families will be destroyed, and innocent people will have their lives ruined. Thank you.
Yeah.